A plant can have enough room on a map and still be completely wrong for that location. It might be placed in deep shade when it needs sunlight, exposed to strong wind, or sitting somewhere where water constantly collects. After adding mature plant sizes and spacing warnings to my food forest planner, I realized the map still had a major blind spot. It could show me where the plants were, but I knew almost nothing about the site around them. In the previous video, I talked about why a plant could not simply be represented as a point. Trees and shrubs grow outward, their canopies overlap, and the mature size changes how much space they need. That solved one problem, but it also exposed the next one. Even a perfectly spaced layout is not necessarily a good layout. A real garden is not a blank sheet of paper. Sunlight moves across it, wind enters from particular directions, water flows, collects, or disappears more quickly in some areas than in others. None of that was yet visible in the planner. Currently, I do not have a piece of land where I can test these ideas properly. Most of this project still exists as a planning, research, and something I hope to put in practice later. That means I need to be especially careful not to treat neat-looking digital plans as a proof that something would work in reality. My unfinished biology studies gave me some background, but I'm pretty rusty, and food forests have been my way of rediscovering that interest. The more I learn, the clearer it becomes that plants cannot be considered separately from their environment. So I wanted the planner to at least provide a way to record some of that environment. The first edition was a sun path. It is a simple visual curve that can be positioned over the plan to represent the direction of the sun across a site. This is not a scientific sunlight simulation. It does not know the season, the latitude, or surrounding buildings, or the exact shadows produced by every tree. Instead, it gives me a place to record something that I have observed or measured elsewhere. For example, if one side of a garden receives the strongest sunlight, I can make that direction visible while arranging the plants. That is already more useful than relying on memory or pretending that every part of the plant receives identical light. The species database also includes shade tolerance, so the environmental information on the map can be considered alongside the needs of individual plants. The connection is still something the person using the planner has to interpret. The tool does not automatically tell that a particular plant is in the wrong place. That might be something to explore later though. But I do not want the planner to make claims it cannot support yet. Water created a similar problem. On an empty canvas, there is no uphill or downhill. There are no wet areas, drainage problems, or routes taken by rainwater. So that's why I added water routes. A route can represent runoff, drainage, irrigation, or a possible swale. Its curve and flow strength can also be adjusted. Again, this does not calculate hydrology. Drawing a swale in the planner certainly does not mean that it would be correctly positioned or safe to construct. Its purpose is to preserve information. If I knew that rainwater normally traveled through a particular part of the site, I could draw that movement before placing plants. I could then compare it with the water requirements stored for the different species. The important change is that water is no longer invisible. Even an approximate observation can now become part of the plan, instead of remaining a thought that might be forgotten later on. Wind was the third part. A sheltered corner and a highly exposed edge may look identical on a top-down map, but they can create very different growing conditions. The planner now lets me add a directional wind area. It can represent prevailing wind, seasonal wind, or general wind exposure. I can change its direction, size, strength, depending on what I'm trying to record. This could help identify where a windbreak might be useful or where a vulnerable plant may need some more protection. But just like the other tools, it is a description rather than a prediction. I would still need real observations from the site ideally across different seasons before trusting what I placed on the map. With these additions, the plan stopped being only a collection of plants. It began to include some of the forces acting on them. And I think this distinction is important. The planner is not generating the conditions. It is helping someone record and think about conditions they have already observed. That may sound less impressive than an automatic analysis, but it's also more honest. A tool should not create a false sense of certainty, especially when every real site is completely different. There is still a great deal missing. The planner currently cannot calculate shadows from mature trees. It does not model changes between summer and winter. It cannot determine elevation or soil drainage, and it does not automatically compare every plant with every environmental condition. These are limitations, but they also give the project somewhere to go. Before building more complicated systems, I want to understand which information would actually help someone make better decisions and which features would only make the planner look more advanced and more polished without being a real feature. This was the next lesson the project taught me. Giving plants realistic dimension was not really enough, because a garden is shaped by more than the space its plants occupy. The site itself needs to become part of the plan. If you have experience observing sunlight, water, or wind when designing a garden or a food forest, I would be interested to know, what do you record and what am I still overlooking? That kind of experience could help determine where the planner goes next. So that's it for this video. I hope you liked it, and I will see you back in the next one.